Now, what's going on with you today? Hope you're staying blessed out there. Today, I want to have a little conversation about this Childish Gambino stuff. Gambino's getting a little bit of backlash right now for a very specific reason. I want to share this story with you and have a little conversation about this, so let's get into it. Donald Glover, also known as Childish Gambino. The last time we spoke about Gambino, Drake was actually taking some shots at him. You guys remember that video I made? That story aside, Gambino isn't someone who's in the headlines like this, so this is a little unusual. So this story starts with this woman right here. Her name is Giannina Antoinette Atero. She's a Kenyan fashion model who was actually on the cover to one of Gambino's albums. The album in question is, well, let me show you the cover. I'm sure you recognize this album cover right here. The album is titled Awaken My Love. It's the third studio album by Childish Gambino and was released on December the 2nd, 2016. Very iconic album cover. I mean, honestly, I think this is one of the most iconic album covers in at least like the last decade. I always thought this cover was really just different. It's creative. There's a lot of emotions on Giannina, you know, the model, her face. That kind of makes you go, damn, I definitely want to hear this album after you just see the cover, right? So the cover, I believe, greatly contributed to the album's success, 100%. And it's crazy because I never thought to research who the person who's on the cover is. I mean, I just found out about this woman's existence and her name. So it's a little unfortunate to find out about the person who really made the cover what it is in this fashion. Now, Giannina recently put up a post on her Facebook account where she opened up about a couple things. And this is what the Facebook post said. Being able to hold an album that I'm on the cover of and having my bestie mom next to me to celebrate. My #1 cheerleader, crying emoji, praying hands emoji, heart emoji. This album has been so hard for me to celebrate for many reasons, and for years I resented it even. It put me through a lot, but finally being able to celebrate it means a lot. Now, sometime after this post had been up, a lot of people in the comments were asking, what do you mean it's been so hard for you to celebrate this, and why do you resent this cover? And that's when Giannina decided to post an update, and this is what she said. I resented it because myself, the makeup artist and stylist, all black women, were taken advantage of and lied to. She continued and said, we received low pay but were promised residuals but never received anything. The only person who received residuals was a white woman who created the headpiece, even though she was not on a set to work on this. But she also deserves it, she emphasized. After years of lies and silence, then finding out statute of limitation complications, it's been an exhausting, emotional, and overall sad thing to deal with. So it took so much from me, especially the fact that we all worked on it with so much love and being proud to represent black artists. All of my lawyers' communications have been ignored by the artist and his team. Hashtag bittersweet. So that's where the post ends. And yeah, essentially we have a fashion model who was on the cover of Childish Gambino's project, Awaken My Love, who was paid a very low fee for the work she did, and apparently she was promised residuals that she never ended up receiving after all these years. Now, this post has gone not as viral as I thought it would. This hasn't received a lot of attention at all, but that's why I'm here to talk about it. So the backlash Gambino has been receiving, you know, as in response to this, has obviously been very negative. A lot of people have been spamming paid a woman, paid a woman, paid a woman on his IG. There's been some people who've kind of been a little bit outspoken on Twitter. Now let's talk a little bit about what she specifically said. So she specifically stated that herself, the makeup artist, and the stylist, who were all black women, were taken advantage of and lied to. All of them apparently received low pay and they were all promised residuals, but they never received anything. Just really quickly about that, I will say this. I've actually never heard of anyone getting paid residuals after they've appeared on an album cover. That's not really a thing in the music industry. Now, there are certain cases, but it's very, very rare. Like if it happens, it has to be a very specific situation where maybe the photo in question was licensed from, you know, some kind of like big company that owns a bunch of portraits or, you know, whatever. But getting paid residuals, not getting paid, but getting paid residuals, now that's definitely an exception and not the rule. So again, promised residuals for this, it's a little questionable and it should have you scratching your head like, wait a second, other people don't get paid residuals for being on album covers. Why would I get paid? That aside, continuing. And then she specifically stated that the only person who received the residuals was a white woman who was the one who created the headpiece that she has on the album cover. As far as how true this is, well, can't confirm nor deny, but I will say if the white woman in question got residuals and she didn't, that's most likely because she made sure to have them sign something. And this is when we get into just making sure that your business is straight when you're in a negotiation. Because Giannina said that they were promised residuals, but she didn't say anything about the fact that Gambino and his team were contractually obliged to actually pay her these residuals. And that's really important. Unfortunately, a lot of people haven't gotten paid in the music industry for work that they've done because they decided to believe empty promises. And it's one thing if people promise that they're going to pay you, and it's another thing if they're legally obliged to pay you. Because once you sign that contract that says that you gotta do something, you're now under obligation legally to do it. That's one of the things that immediately jumps out at me as I'm analyzing this story. Now, that's probably the last thing she was thinking about because, hey, I'm going to be on Childish Gambino's album cover. This is going to be really big for me. And you know what? I'm going to take this upfront fee that may not be so big because it's going to be life-changing, but they promised me that they're going to pay me residuals. I'm going to choose to believe that because I really want this opportunity and they don't do it. What do you do in a situation like that? Well, ain't much you can do. Unfortunately, aside from taking it to social media, because you can't really take it to court because they're not legally obliged to pay you residuals. That's also probably why Gambino's team allegedly have been dodging her lawyers, because they don't have to answer to her lawyers, nor do they have to pay her any residuals. And you know what? It is unfortunate, man, because her being in this photo had such an impact on the success of this project. And so her face is on this very successful album, but on a back end, she wasn't allegedly compensated adequately. Now, as for the fact that allegedly all the people who didn't get paid were black women, I'll say this about that. With the information that we have right now, I can't really say that that's something that I think holds a lot of weight here, because here's the thing. On top of the fact that people don't usually get paid residuals to appear on album covers, just like I mentioned a second ago, if they're not contractually obliged to pay you, and let's say they paid this white woman, well, they probably paid her because they had to pay her. And the most important part, that white woman, if she got paid, she made sure that they had to pay her. She made sure of that, and they didn't have to pay you. And the reason why that might have happened, well, negotiating skills. That's really the answer here if you ask me. Because a lot of times, people might be in situations where they might take like a fee that's not all that big, because they might look at the situation and say, this opportunity right here is at the end of the day going to be way bigger than any dollar amount. And that's actually possible. There's a lot of stories of that where someone doesn't get paid for something, but on the back end, they end up greatly benefiting because it is such a big opportunity. And sometimes the look in itself ends up paying dividends way more than anything that one-time payment could have ever done for you. Now, I think everybody should get paid. All I'm saying is you can't deny that, like in this case right here, that Giannina being on this album cover literally changed her life. I'm sure she would agree with that. And at the end of the day, she did get paid. However, she just didn't get paid the amount she felt like was adequate. Now, will Gambino just say, you know what, let me just pay this woman right here? Well, being honest, since it's been, 7 years since the project came out, and she still hasn't gotten the residuals that they allegedly promised her. After this, I'm not sure if that's going to happen, especially now since she decided to take it to social media, which obviously was, as a last resort kind of response for her. But still, she hasn't received these residuals in over 7 years. She was on an album cover, she got the exposure, they did pay her that one-time fee, and they're not contractually obliged to pay her. At the end of the day, maybe this should serve as a lesson to Giannina and other people out there as well. In the business world, ain't no such thing as promised. The only language you should speak is, could you put this on paper for me? Could you put this on paper for me? That's a statement that you should always have in your head. Could you put this on paper for me? Could you put this on paper for me? Because the only time people will follow through on the quote-unquote promises they made is when they're legally obliged to do so. I just want to add this in because this is actually important. Sometimes when you say that you want something on paper, and let's say the people that you're trying to do business with don't really feel like you're necessary in the equation, what could actually happen is that you might lose out on that opportunity. And I suspect, I could be wrong, but I suspect if she said that she wanted all this on paper, she might have probably not been on this cover. And that's kind of the tricky part here, because once you take your white hand or black hand or whatever skin color you got inside that cookie jar, hey man, you can't then pretend like you ain't tried to do that, is what I'm saying. Anyway, there you have the video. Any thoughts on this conversation? Childish Gambino is getting a little bit of backlash for allegedly not paying the model who appeared on his album, Awaken My Love, any residuals. She decided to, after all these years, come out with a little statement saying that she was promised residuals that she never received. Do you have any thoughts on this conversation? Curious to hear what you have to say. See you in the comments, and yeah, peace. I'm out.